Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the May 8th River Falls City Council meeting. First thing we'll do is stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please, Christie.
Bierstead.
Here.
Downing.
Here.
Gagne.
Here.
Morset.
Here.
Odine.
Here.
Page.
Here.
Watson.
Here.
Next, we have approval of the minutes from the April 24th regular and closed session minutes and the workshop minutes from April 17th.
And April 24th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I said that, didn't I? Here, let me start over. Next, we'll have the approval of the minutes from the April 24th regular and closed session minutes, the April 24th workshop minutes, and the April 17th organizational minutes.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we have approval of the bills with Mr. Bierstead.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I move for approval of payment of bills in the amount of $2,549,161.79, subject to the Comptroller.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next will be time for, if there's anybody in the audience that has anything they'd like to stand up and talk about, now would be the time. Yep, come on forward. Just, there should be a sign-up sheet there. You can sign your name.
Okay,
Right to your right, I think.
pen there.
There we go.
My address too?
Yeah, right? You need that, Christie? Yes.
Thank you.
That way we know where to send all the junk mail.
Okay, sounds good. All right. This is my first council meeting I've ever been to, so bear with me, I'm a little nervous. My name is Michael Madsen. I live at 371 High Ridge Road, and I moved there with my wife and daughter in December of 2014. It's located on Bartosh and Foster Street, with our front yard being on High Ridge Road. So we're surrounded by streets. Oh, I should back up. I wanted to talk about the new fence ordinance, so we know what we're talking about here. Okay. We're surrounded by three streets on three sides of my property, so we really don't have a backyard. When we moved in, we planned to build the fence, but we just didn't have the money at the time. So we've been kind of saving money here and there. And the first summer that we were living there, we realized that we wanted to build the fence sooner rather than later. Just some of the things that we encountered by having that open concept there is the street, Foster Street's pretty busy, and we do to get some noise traffic from that. And we thought a fence would probably help with that situation a little bit. But also, we worried about our daughter playing in the yard. You know, we didn't want to leave her alone in the yard to play by herself because of the amount of cars going by. You just never know who can stop and grab her or try and do some harm to her. So, I know River Falls is a pretty safe town from what I can see. So, I might be overreacting a little bit, and maybe that's just being a parent of a single child or whatever. But anyway, we just wanted to have a fence for safety for our daughter. The other problem that we ran into was the dog walkers walking on Bartosh on the sidewalk right next to our property. Some of the dog walkers are not very respectful of private property, and I tried to address it with the people whenever they just there were a lot of dog walkers just letting their dogs do their business in our yard, and we tried to. Whenever I see them do it, I go out there and tell them, hey, at least use the section between the sidewalk and the street. That's technically city property, correct? Even though I mow it and pay the property taxes on it, it's still city property, right? So most of the time I got, people were respectful of me asking them to do that. But there were a few times where I got some people kind of angry with me, mad at me because I told them to stay off my property. So, in fact, there was a few times even where people used profanity with me. It started calling me names and stuff. So that was another reason to want to build the fence. So after 3 years of saving, we're ready to build the fence this summer. And then we go to find out they changed the ordinance, so we can't actually build a 6-foot privacy fence. So my wife and I were pretty upset about that. And we actually considered selling our house and moving from the property because it's something that we'd wanted to build since we moved in there. And anyway, I'm happy to see that you're actually considering changing. I'd like you to just change it back the way it was. That would be a lot better for me, actually. But because now we have to put the landscaping in, which I am actually kind of concerned about. It's going to be a little extra cost and a little extra work for us, which we really didn't want to do. But if it's going to get us our 6-foot fence, so be it. So I guess I'm just asking you all to vote for it next week or next month or whenever you do it. Sooner rather better than later. We got a fence contractor lined up, and we're just kind of waiting to see what you guys do. So just hoping that you vote for that to give us our privacy fence. We just want to have something safe and private for my family. So,
Okay.
All right, thanks for
Can I
listening.
ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So you're in favor of the way this is written now?
Not entirely, no. I'd prefer none of the landscaping to be in it, just because of the cost.
Yeah.
We've been saving for 3 years to buy the fence, and now we have to spend money on the landscaping, so.
Okay.
It is what it is. If that's the way you pass it, I gotta live with it, but I'd prefer to just let it be back the way it was, so.
Is that the corner lot there?
Yeah, it's a corner lot.
Okay. I'll comment on the same road. There's another gal that's been consulting with the city in the end of that cul-de-sac that wants to do the exact same thing because of a bigger dog that'll jump a 5-foot fence, so just throw that out there.
Thanks, Michael.
All right,
Feel free to come back anytime you want.
okay, great.
Because contrary to popular belief, it gets pretty exciting there. Okay. Next, we're gonna do a little recognition of Judge June. Oh, I'm sorry. Come on up. I didn't. Sorry. Person. Hi, Jeff.
Yep, howdy. Let me sign in. Thank you. There, all right. Hello, my name is Jeff Bjork. I'm from River Falls. I've lived here for 5 years now, this current time, and I'm a lifelong citizen before that. I was in California for a number of years before, but my family's been here for close to 150 years, and I'd like to bring up something that I learned more about 2 weeks ago when there was a St. Croix River watershed situation or conference and information before that. And when I was a kid, we used to play all the time down on the Kinney Connect. We actually considered it our playground. My playground was really from Cedar Street down to the first big bend below on the lower Kinney Connect. We considered ourselves Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, and we made forts, and we did lots of things there. But one thing that was always interesting when we were there, not interesting, but we would always see turtles. And something I learned 2 weeks ago, the University of Wisconsin-River Falls did a study for a full summer, 3+ months. And what we learned in that study, from 30 years ago till today, we've lost over 90% of our turtle population. We have less than 10% of our turtle population left. And there's an organization out in Wisconsin, And there's also starting to be an organization here in River Falls that is jumping on this, and it's Turtles for Tomorrow. And Turtles for Tomorrow is a group that is looking to try to figure out ways that we can preserve and restore the turtle population and the habitat here. And let me continue to share what's going on here. Like I said, the turtles in River Falls were at 10% of what the population was just 30 years ago. The turtles have been in River Falls before the dinosaur. Turtles have a existence that's longer than dinosaurs. The turtles in River Falls have been here longer than we've been around, obviously, and they've been around longer than a lot of the fish have been in River Falls and other things too. As we all know, there's been fish species that have been introduced to the Kinnickinnic. The turtles have not been introduced to the Kinnickinnic Valley. Turtles live to be over 100 years old, and as I said before, if you look at the line item right here, there was a study done just last year that showed that the population is less than 10% of what it was just 30 years ago. The biggest issue with the loss of the turtles is the habitat. And what I want to share with you is the number one situation that we lost habitat, and I'll go on. Let me just do this real quick. So the habitat is the biggest situation that we've lost with the turtles. The nature they preserve. What turtles want is ponds, lakes, slow-moving water, backwater of streams. They don't want fast-moving streams. They're not looking for big lakes. They're looking for wetlands that have their protection in for their nesting ground. And we used to have a bunch of that here in River Falls. And what happened, and I'm going to spell it out here, approximately 30 years ago, we lost our biggest natural habitat that we had for turtles. And it was our choice as a city, and it was the sand pit, and what we use as our compost pile now. That used to be a sand pit, a gravel pit down there. And when I was a kid, we used to grab, accidentally and on purpose, but we'd be able to take turtle eggs out of there and help incubate these turtles and move them around. And of course, Mrs. Gavin or Mrs. DeLong or Mrs. Geis or Mrs. Bjork or whoever would get mad. It's like, why are you having these snapping turtles in my garage take off? But that's what it was. We had snapping turtles, we had painted turtles, and we had hundreds of turtles within the lower Kinnickinnic area from Cedar Street down. And so we lost this ground to our compost pile about 30 years ago. So that's a concern that we've lost that, but there's also another concern that we have the threat of losing today the best prime area that we have for turtles, and that's the Lake Louise wetland areas. In that area, you have prime areas that are set up for turtles with and we'll talk about it in the third step here too, but as we all know, I think we do, but whether there's a man-made dam there or not, it's always been a lake and a pond down. Well, not a lake, but a pond. The beavers always pond that up, and it's always been primed environment for turtles. And there's a fear for the Turtles for Tomorrow that prime candidate or that prime environment is going to be potentially lost unless we let nature take its course. And if you go to the third part here where it talks about the walking paths and the development and the recreational, my family, we fish almost every week during the fishing season. We kayak. We have three kayaks now. We're culprits to this too, but the kayaks going down the Kinnickinnic are not the most friendly to turtles because when you're going down the Kinnickinnic, you don't want a log in the way. You want to move it out of the way, and turtles love sunning and not nesting, but sunning out on a log. And if you move the logs that are on the side of the shore or across the river, you have now taken away what the turtles like to have. So they'll lay out there in the sun. They're cold-blooded, so they're out there. But if a coyote or a skunk or a raccoon comes, they can plop down into the water and get right away, away safely. But if those logs are not out there, and if they're being moved, the turtles don't have that habitat. So the 3 points we want to bring out here are the habitat that we've lost from the compost pile, the habitat that potentially could be lost for the backwater area and the marsh area of the Lake Louise, and also the walking paths that we've added. So The walking paths are great, but let's be honest, they take away from turtle habitat, and of course, if we continue to put those paved and we put up the lights, that is not encouraging the turtles that are losing their habitat in here in River Falls. I've spelled out just here real quick. You can see those are the habitats. That picture down below is a picture of the Lake Louise as of 40 years ago, 1977, so 41 years ago. You can see it's approximately 1,000 feet away from what the prime turtle habitat used to be to Lake Louise shores. And then you had the prime areas where they'd like to ground or play and live in their sanctuary areas. So, and in case you don't understand what that is there, I have it on a map too so you can see. So I don't know if you can tell, but hopefully you guys understand where I'm talking about. So it's Lake Louise up to the compost area, our primed areas. There used to be 2 spring ponds in there as well, that now there's only 1. So again, I am just bringing this up. I just want to make sure you're all aware that we do have turtles here and that the turtles would like a chance to see tomorrow. And if you have any questions, and the organization is called turtlesfortomorrow.org. They're based in Madison. The head of it is Bob Hayes. Bob was a graduate of UW-Stevens Point and is now with the Wisconsin DNR. Also in the organization is a doctor from Whitewater. I can't remember his name right now, but it's a big group, and the group is committed to trying to save the turtles in Wisconsin. There's 11 different species of turtles in Wisconsin. 5 or 7 of them are endangered right now, and we'd like to see if River Falls can maybe help the turtle population come back. So thank you, unless there's any questions.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anybody else in the audience have anything they'd like to talk about? Well, otherwise, I got a little something to say about June. June, if you want to come on up here. So I'm assuming most of you know June retired. She retired on April 30th after serving 34 years as a River Falls municipal judge. I've never been in front of her once, so just so we know that. But let's see, June became the River Falls municipal judge after winning the election against 3 other opponents in 1984. Since 1984, the municipal court has evolved from holding court in a one-room setting to the current council chambers. But one thing remained constant. June conducted the court with genuine concern and compassion for people, creating a process that fostered change. June worked with the River Falls School District and River Falls Police Department that created a truancy program benefiting students and their families to change behavior and keep kids in school. June also has been recognized for working closely with the Renaissance Academy and their students. In retirement, June looks forward to spending more time with friends and family. We wish June the best in her retirement, and we greatly appreciate everything you've done for us, June.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for everything.
I wish my family were here to see this. I don't get applause for them. Thank you. It's been my honor to be your judge for this long time. I love the job. I loved everything about it. I love the people I worked with. And as I looked at River Falls, this is a community where we wanted to live, even though my husband and I had jobs that took us away from River Falls. We continued to live here because it was a wonderful place to raise a family. And I always found that parents and teachers were concerned about the young people in this town. And I think it's a credit to the community when people care about the next generation. I've had a wonderful experience. I'm going to miss it, but it's time to move on. And I want to just thank you for the trust you gave me through all these years to be your judge. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to close the council hearing and open up a public hearing for relicensing Junior's liquor license. I'll need a motion and a second to amend the licensed premises to include an additional outside area as specified in the drawing found in the packet, and approve the renewal of JRKM Management, who's doing business as Junior's Bar and Restaurant, combination Class B liquor and Class B beer license for July 1st, 2018 through June 30th of 2019.
This is a public hearing.
They were in a public hearing, so we can.
Yep. Oh, I know, sorry. So if there's anybody in the audience has anything they'd like to say about this, otherwise we'll close the public hearing and reopen up the council hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we renew, we amend the license for the premises JRKM Management, doing business as Junior's Bar and Restaurant, and renew the liquor license for July 1st, 18 through June 30th, 19.
Second.
Just a quick question, do we have to do
We
two
would,
separate things here, or can we do them together?
could you do two separate motions
Oh,
for
sure.
us? That would be
Okay,
appreciated.
sure, sorry.
Thank you.
What's the other motion you want me to make?
Well, just a motion
One for the license.
Oh.
One for the,
Change in premises.
yep.
All right, I make a motion that we, what do we want to do
We'll
first?
do one at a
Amendment?
time, whatever we want to.
Well, I'll make a motion that we amend the premises.
I'll second.
Questions or comments?
I just got a quick question, Dustin, if I could. It's more of a comment than anything. I drove by there today. It looks like things are progressing. It looks like it's going to be a neat spot, and I fully support it. My concern is over parking, which has always been a problem in that area. It's not just you. There's other people that contribute to the parking issue. One question or one thing I'd pose to you to consider is paving your other lot across the street. That might give you some more defined spots to park over there. I think I've been in that lot a couple times when it gets a little willy-nilly. People think it's a spot and they just stop, and
Right.
by paving it, which I know is an expense. I know
Right.
that's a big expense, but I just ask you to consider that in the future as the till will just ring unbelievably now with the outside patio. You'll have all this excess money to do it, I'm sure. So.
Sure, yeah, we'll take it under consideration. We've had many conversations about it with the city and with, the owners of the hotel, and so there's definitely conversations that are happening regarding that, so.
And I appreciate that. I know that. I just want to bring it up, but that's the only comment I had.
Thanks.
For you as well. Same question I asked you before the meeting. I've asked all the other bar owners that have outdoor patios over the years of being on council, because you are going to have an outdoor facility. How is that going to be staffed to monitor people coming and going?
Sure. Well, our plan is that anytime that the patio is open out there, we're going to have staff out there full-time. So not only will we have a bartender, but our intention is to try to operate as a restaurant out there mainly. So we're going to have servers, we're going to have bartenders, we're going to have a host seating people.
Okay.
So there is going to be staff out there full-time.
And the only entrance and exit is through that one little doorway off the pavilion from that?
No, there's multiple entrances going in and out of the patio for egress reasons. I think there's 3 total. The main entrance, or where we plan on putting our host stand, would be the closest to the back door at Junior's when you're used to going in. So it'd be right there on your right, and it shows that on the plans.
And staff has clear access to all those, or
Yes.
clear vision from where they will be at the bar and from where the servers
Yeah,
are?
there should be a clean line of sight everywhere, except for, I guess, if you're standing on the west side of the proposed structure where the bar is going to be. But other than that,
Okay.
you should be able to see everything from everywhere. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I checked with the PD as well, and they didn't have any concerns on that initially, so I'm all in favor of it as well.
Sure. Great.
Great
Thank you.
addition.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next one?
Now we've got to renew the license.
Yep.
That's right.
All right, I make a motion, we approve the license renewal for I forgot the initials now.
JRKM.
JRKM from July 1st of 18 to June 30th of 19.
Second. And just to clarify, that's combination Class B and
Yes.
Class B beer license.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we move on to consent agenda. First one is a resolution order bid for the 2018 sidewalk, curb, gutter, and structure repair program. Next one is a resolution approving relocation order for property acquisitions. This would be for South Highway 3565 ramp, which is Hanson and Division Street. Let's see, next one is a resolution for the final acceptance of public improvements in Knollwood. And this resolution would accept the public Knollwood second edition. Does anybody want to pull anything?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull consent agenda item number 5.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, or entertain a motion on the rest?
Mr. Mayor, I move for the approval of consent agenda items 4 and 6.
Second?
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Mr. Downing, you pulled number 5.
Resolution approving relocation order for property acquisition South 3565 ramp, Hanson Drive, and Division Street. I just want to clarify this for people who are at home, which particular property we're talking about, and something, even if it includes any optional property. Would you be able to answer that, Scott?
Yes, I'll do my best, and if you have additional questions, city engineer may be able to answer these. But what the council is doing is approving a relocation order for 2 properties. As indicated in previous meetings, we've been talking about what properties would need to be acquired in order to accommodate the state's project. We have an agreement with the state, which requires them to do some of the work as far as acquisition on our behalf, but the city is purchasing necessary properties, and essentially the state then is doing all the work and paying for the road itself, although we have a small portion of the road potentially, depending on how the bids come in. So this resolution authorized the city administrator and the city attorney to purchase, to go forward with the order, which is essentially saying that you will, you are going to purchase the properties. It's the Pahachik and Dunn properties. There are 4 properties in total. The order for relocation is only pertaining to 2 of them. The 2 other property owners, one has contacted me directly and one has contacted the state regarding their interest in voluntarily selling their property as part of the project. But this is not an authorization for me to enter into agreements with those 2 property owners. This is a resolution authorizing me to get an agreement with the 2 property owners that are covered by the resolution. And if we were not to arrive at an agreed to price, then this sets in motion the condemnation process to purchase that. I just want to add one thing. I have had had a conversation with Miss Robin Dunn. They understand the process and some of what's going on with the property. They don't have a particular objection to the city acquiring, hopefully through just negotiated purchase, but they also understand the need for relocation. Their concern is that the city council would only pass a relocation that order that includes the entire property. In other words, not partial acquisition or right up to the front door or something, which is not what we're planning to do. So that she just wanted to let the city council know that the families doesn't have an objection to this process as long as the entire property is included in the order. That's also my understanding with the Pahachik, although I've not had a specific conversation personally with the Pahachik family about the property. So I don't know if you have something.
I had a conversation with 2 of the Pahachik daughters. They're all on board with regard to this.
So staff is representing to you what the families have told us, but understand this is a relocation process. So it's not a voluntary process for the property owners once the council sets it in motion. So it's certainly it's helpful to us as staff to have cooperative and understanding property owners, but you're not authorizing just a negotiation you're authorized us to go forward with the project, which will include us purchasing the property. Hopefully that's basically a negotiated process, but what you're passing for resolution is that we'll go forward with the acquisition. If if we're unsuccessful in negotiating, then we'll go through the state process, which gives them the ability to have appraisals of their own that we pay for, and a number of other steps. So I don't take the process lightly. It's a happy thing that the property owners are aware and cooperative, but this is a necessary power of the city in order to proceed with a safety improvement. And it's necessary for us to do it at this time so we can keep the project moving forward.
Yep. The map on the screen shows the two specific properties, one that fronts on Hanson Drive and the other that's on the corner of Hanson Drive, but fronting on Division.
Well, thank you, Scott and Reed, and I think you've helped create the awareness I want the community to have in this involvement with this project, so they know what's going on completely. So with that, I move approval for consent agenda item number 5.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we move on to ordinance resolutions. Ordinance 2018-04, amending Title 17, zoning of the municipal code related to fences. And this is the first reading. The second reading will be at our next meeting, which is May 22nd. Does council have any questions?
I do have one question about how this applies to fences that already exist, or if it does not apply.
Does not.
Just new construction? Just new. Okay.
There may be a circumstance in which you substantially deconstruct and do a new fence.
Yeah.
We often, I haven't had the case in River Falls, but I've worked in other cities where somebody's left up one wall of a house or one section of a fence and said, I can follow all the old rules. Generally, we would work with them, but it's intended to focus on new construction of fences that are not currently existing.
Very good.
I'd just like to make the awareness as well. I think the staff and council and plan commission spent a lot of time on this fence ordinance, and I commend the staff for being open to the public and all the input that you received from various different people on this. And I think it's a great step to kind of find some middle ground and what's good for the community and for the residents that this impacts, especially with through lots and privacy and animals and stuff like that. So, good job.
And for the council's information, Mr. Mattson was speaking about a lot that would be first on the left. So it would be street on 3 sides, the through lot with the house on the front street. So in his circumstance, I believe what he's indicating a concern about is where it's shown in yellow. That'd be set back 3 feet from property line with landscaping along the street side of the fence. So in other words, there's 2 street sides of that fence that would be landscaped. And so that was seen as some compromise because that's a pretty 6-foot solid fence is a pretty substantial thing. And the Plan Commission, I believe, felt that they wanted to break it up. But I'll note that they didn't provide specific landscaping requirements, so we'll have to work with the property owners to be reasonable and thoughtful about the intensity we need for landscaping. We're basically going to be asking the property owner to do the landscaping that breaks it up, but there isn't a rule that there's a bush every 3 feet or something like that. So if the council's uncomfortable with that level of uncertainty, they could certainly modify this to be more certain. The council also will have the ability at the second reading to modify the ordinance. So if you don't like 6 foot and you want 7, you could do that. If you didn't like 6, you can go 5. That's a policy decision for the council. You have a recommendation from the Plan Commission and staff.
Mr. Mayor.
Nope.
Just one more thing to add. You know, I'm pretty familiar with that property, and it is on a corner lot, and it seems like a lot of fence from somebody on the street looking in. And, you know, I think landscaping is definitely feasible for it. But from his side of it, I mean, it's a pretty steep hill going down. So a 6-foot fence from sitting up by his house isn't that substantial to him and being a property owner. So I think it's a good happy medium, you know, and yeah, it's not great that you have to put landscaping up after you put all that expense into a fence, but, you know, I think for the reasons being, that's a good compromise.
I had 2 or 3 conversations with Mr. Mattson over the last month or so. I drove by his property today and just made sure I knew what I was looking at. There are also existing fences along there. There are some, what I would call modified stockade fences 2 doors down, I believe, that have sort of the stockade with the lattice work on top, which kind of look nice, which I encouraged him to kind of consider. He and I talked briefly about landscaping, and I said I think that working with staff they'd be able to find a happy medium. I don't think we want to put any burden on any homeowner, but I also don't think we want to, you know, a fortress type of look on some of our streets. So, and I think he understood that. I heard what he had to say tonight about, you know, the expense of landscaping, and he's concerned about, you know, dogs and people destroying the shrubbery and so forth. But I think hopefully we can find a low cost compromise for everybody. So,
Yeah. And I think working with planning on stuff like that will
yeah,
work out good. Okay, anything else? Otherwise, the next one is an ordinance 2015-05, amending the official traffic control map, changing the speed limit to 45 miles an hour on Hooper Street from Chapman Drive to Arrow Court. There again, this is the first reading, and the second reading will be at our next meeting on May 22nd. Does the council have any questions? Okay, next move on to ordinance 2018-06. This is creating a one-way alley for Riverwalk. There again, this is the first reading. This ordinance would extend one-way signage along the Riverwalk alley from Veterans Park to Walnut Street, making the entire alley one-way southbound. And again, the second reading will be at our next council meeting, which is May 22nd. Anybody have any questions on the council?
Does that include any cosmetic improvements other than just parking and whatnot? Or is there any specific ones that come with that?
Signage and...
Change only comes with a couple signs.
Okay.
So we're not proposing as part of this change anything dramatic with the alley. Frankly, because we think we bit off enough with the theater project to just try to see how it goes. But we certainly, I walked with staff. I walked this project with staff in relation to the theater project, and I think as much as I wanted to say, let's try to do this or that, I think we thought, let's try to get the theater project done first and let this kind of work through the Kinney Quarter planning process to see what we'll come up with. Because there's narrow sidewalks, there's erosion issues, there's utility pole, lots of overhead, lots of building connections. There's property doors that's actually swing into the physical alley. So there's a list of things that I could understand the council would like us to address, but we are not proposing addressing those as part of this change, nor do we have a complex plan of what if then we will do this. So we think that for traffic reasons it'll work. It will certainly potentially add some additional traffic to the current one-way section, and then we'll have to monitor that to kind of understand and react to what would happen there. But it should be low speed, just because of the topographical nature of that alley. It's gonna even if you wanted to go fast, I think that would be risky for your own car. But we'll still have the issues with Veterans Park crosswalk and blind corner. So as much as we'd like to have a comprehensive plan, we don't. We just want to we think we need to get the traffic flowing, because the primary safety issue seems to be increased use of the trails and kind of sneaking through the alley there between Lazy River and the Bros deck.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the discussion during the corridor planning process has been to have this ultimately be foot traffic only and then just service road and to remove any sort of thoroughfare traffic through there, eventually.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that the likely scenario that's been outlined in the charrette and previous downtown plans and other community engagement and even discussions with some of the property owners, not all of them agree with that concept, but that at some point this becomes open to vehicle traffic only that's directly serving the businesses. Not a parking lot, not, but that could be 15 years away or 20 years away. This isn't just one step in and then within 2 years we'll be able to convert it because we've got the one-way alley traffic. We consider this a longer-term solution to the traffic with vehicles, regular vehicle and pedestrian traffic and bicycles in the same spot.
Okay. Anybody else? Otherwise, move on to reports. First one is our Deputy Clerk Jennifer Rogers is going to give us a little presentation on renewing liquor licenses.
Hi. I'll get this set up. So in a couple weeks, you'll have this room halfway filled or 3/4 filled with agents representing various businesses around town. So we figured it's probably a good time to do a report on the liquor licensing, just to get a refresher before then. Let me see. Again, I am Jennifer Rogers. I'm the Deputy Clerk, and hopefully I can provide you with some information. Probably more of a review, but I'll try to answer any questions that you may have at the same time as well. So again, just basics about licensing is that a liquor license is a privilege granted by the local governing authority, you all, and can only be used by the person to whom it is issued. The liquor licensing is governed by the Wisconsin State Statutes, Chapter 125 and 139, Tax Codes 789, and of course our own Municipal Code, Chapter 5.8. The city has no input on the complexity of the process involved with the licensing. We just we're the middleman in a sense, and we just take what the laws are and we pass it on to the licensees, the applicants, sorry. So no owner or person in charge of a public place may permit the consumption of alcohol on the premises unless the person has an appropriate license or permit. So if you're going to serve, sell, you need to have the license. If any charges are made directly or indirectly, or a recovery of the cost of a private event are for alcohol beverages, the state requires the person in charge to hold the appropriate licenses. So it's you go to an establishment, you purchase the alcohol. That's, pretty understandable. But some of the indirect charges, examples would be if you were to go somewhere and you go to an event and the ticket price includes alcohol, that's indirect, donations, cost of a meal, and then you get an alcoholic beverage. So even if you do those types of transactions indirectly, you need to have a license, the appropriate license. A license will allow a person to sell alcohol beverages to individual retail customers from a particular place, the premises. The sale must occur at the licensed premises with the buyer and the seller physically present at the time of sale. So you can't call somewhere, I don't know if we have this, call somewhere and place an order for some, a meal and then have it delivered to you with an alcoholic beverage. That's not permitted. You have to be physically present at the licensed premises to make that sale. There's going to be 3 types of different alcohol licenses, A, B, and C, and of course there's the quotation marks, and it kind of confused me. I had to learn all of this, and so the placement of the quotation is pretty significant. You've heard it, A is for away, and then B is for here. The bar pretty much is where you consume the beverage, but there are different types. Class A with the quotation marks around the A stands for beer. And an example of where we have a licensed establishment would be Bob and Steve's Amico. A Class A represents liquor, intoxicating liquor. For that, we actually don't have any in the city. moving on to the combination A and Class A, and then the Class A, quotation marks, feel silly doing that, you would have like Family Fresh, Walmart's, Hometown Liquors, those type of places where you would have the intoxicating plus the beer component to it. For the B licenses, you have just the Class B quotation marks around the B, and that's just beer. Pizza Hut chooses to just have beer, nothing else with it. Class beer liquor cannot be issued except if it's a winery. So, and typically, if you're going to sell intoxicating liquor, you need to have the beer component to it as well. And then a combination, an example of that would be Mel's Midtowner or pretty much any bar that you come across here on Main Street. Class C wine, that license allows restaurants to sell just wine. Steve's Pizzas is one of that has that license. And then, of course, we have the temporary licenses, the B, beer, Class B wine, and then the combination of both. And so those are issued to bona fide clubs, churches, Chamber of Commerce, those type of things. So like Bacon Bash, River Falls Days, they have the temporary, which is also known as a picnic license. So if it's going to be just for a day, 2-3 days, you'd need a temporary. You don't have to apply for the whole license for the duration of the year. In 1997, the quota limit was set, and it was based off of population, and it was set at 19. So 19 Class B liquor license is what we have here in the city, and there's no other quota for any other license, A's or C's, it's just the Class B. So the governing body does not have to grant licenses up to the quota. If by chance, something happens 1 year in the future and, someone drops out of it, you don't have to go back up to 19 if you don't want to. You can 18, 17. So the application process, the forms must be completed and received in the clerk's office 15 days prior to council action. And that pretty much just gives us time to review the application, look for missing information, call them, email them, make sure it's all put together. And then we actually put together the public hearing, and that's published in the paper. Record checks are done just to make sure that the agents, the agent, so the agents are eligible to be renewed. So all corporations and limited liability companies must appoint an agent. And pretty much an agent is given the full authority to, and control over the licensed premise and commercial activities on the premise relating to alcoholic beverages. Individuals and partnership ownerships carry the same responsibility as an agent. Renewal letters were sent out last month in April, and that pretty much ensures that everyone has enough time to gather their paperwork, their Wisconsin seller's permit, or just people need time to fill out paperwork. And so the deadline was May 4th. At this point, we have all but one, and it's actually a partial application, so we thought we were doing pretty good until it didn't come in. But we have all of them but one, and then we'll have one on the June 12th agenda. This person will not be present for the meeting, but it's good news. I mean, we got them all, so pretty much. A personal appearance by the agent is a requirement, so in 2 weeks, have a whole bunch of them here sitting, and if you have any questions, they'll be able to answer them for you, hopefully. Kind of breeze through that real quick, but if you have any questions, I'll do my best, and hopefully don't have to do a repeat this time.
Are we at the maximum number now?
19?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
And is that quota set by the state or by the city?
It was by the state, and it was based off of population. I believe it's for every 500 people, it was like one establishment allowed.
And will they be re-looking at quotas in the future, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, because before 1997, it was 1930-something, 37 to 39, so it's kind of slow to change.
Sure.
I'm not sure that we'll see any changes anytime soon.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And beyond that 19, there is correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a process by which an establishment or the city has a certain number of licenses that can be purchased at a higher, or for some
Correct.
other.
Those are called 5 reserve licenses that can be purchased at a cost. Minimum would be $10,000 plus the $500 fee additional with that. We do have those available, yes.
Right, thank you.
And that This process is only for local establishments that are serving beer, alcohol, liquor, cider, not breweries. Breweries are covered by a state license, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, they are licensed by the state.
So that has nothing to do with the city process or
Right, we
council?
don't issue those, no.
Awesome, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thanks, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the administrator's report. Anybody has anything for Scott?
Appreciated the opportunity to listen and talk a little bit about strategic planning today. So thanks for your patience and your hard work today. From 2 to 6 p.m. on May 21st, the library will be hosting a retirement party for Nancy Miller, who will be retiring. City newsletter will be out it's in the mail, I think, as we speak. So that'd be a nice write-up on both Terry Kuzlik and Nancy Miller and that newsletter. May 31st from 9 to 11 is the Board of Review, which should be familiar to all of you since you're members of the Board of Review. And I'd be happy to take any other questions that you might have, keeping in mind that next council meeting proceeding will be at 5 p.m. will be a fiscal plan workshop. So you get to do some more work.
I do have a question about the Board of Review. If there are training materials available for that, is there a CD-ROM?
Yes, city clerk has the training materials.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's on CD-ROM or still
Well,
on
flash drive or whatever.
When I used it last year, it was a CD.
She's got a
Isn't far
she's got a CD that has all the old processes and kind of gives you a video of it.
good.
That she also gives you a link for the updates,
Cool.
new law updates.
Thank you.
Okay.
Happy to take any other questions you might have.
Okay, I guess that's it. Okay, next we move on to, we got a couple of proclamations. The first one is the National Public Works Proclamation, who Councilmember Odine is going to read for us.
Thank you, Mayor Dan. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water, sewers, streets and highways, public buildings, and solid waste collection, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. Now therefore, I, Mayor Dan Toland of the City of River Falls, do proclaim the week of May 20th through 26th, 2018 as National Public Works Week, and call upon the people of River Falls to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contribution which public work officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Given under my hand and seal of the City of River Falls this 8th day of May, 2018.
Thanks. And we have another proclamation. This is a Police Appreciation Week, and Councilmember Morissette will read that for us.
Whereas the police officers of River Falls have worked devotedly and unselfishly on behalf of the people of this community, regardless of peril or hazard to themselves, these officers have safeguarded the lives and property of all in River Falls. And by their service and their dedicated efforts, these men and women have earned the gratitude of the City of River Falls. And whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy was authorized by Congress to proclaim May 15th of each year as National Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all peace officers who have been killed or disabled in the line of duty. And whereas the presidential proclamation also designated that each year the calendar week in which May 15th occurs or precedes shall be proclaimed Police Appreciation Week in recognition of the services given by the men and women who day and night stand guard in our communities, and proclaimed May 15th, 2018 as Peace Officers Memorial Day. Now therefore I, Dan Toland, Mayor of the City of River Falls, do hereby proclaim the week of May 12th through the 18th, 2018 as Police Appreciation Week in the City of River Falls, and encourage all citizens to observe the week with law enforcement officers past and present who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and proclaim May 15th, 2018 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of these law enforcement officers through their courageous deeds have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have been disabled in the performance of the duty. Give it under his hand and seal the city of River Falls this 8th day of May, 2018.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, next, move on to, I have a couple appointments I'd like to make. I hope the council looks upon favorably. I'd like to reappoint Carrie Olson to the Business Improvement District through December of 2020. I'd like to reappoint Brenda Galkey to the Park and Rec Advisory Board through May of 21. And I'd like to reappoint Susan Reese to the Park and Rec Advisory Board through May of 21.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept your appointments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next move on to, we'll recess into closed session per Wisconsin state statutes for the following purposes. 19.85, 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whether competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. To wit, sale of property in Whitetail Ridge Corporate Park and Sterling Ponds Corporate Park.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we recess into closed session.
Second.
Christie, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes.
Downing.
Yes.
Morset.
Yes.
Gagne.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Bierstead.
Yes.
Page.
Yes.
Okay, we're in closed session.